The crossover segment is in the eye of the beholder. There's so many options out there. Some are kind of cute and cuddly, and other ones have kind of a masculine approach. Hey, and welcome to this edition of Road Warrior. I'm your host, Grant Roberson. Now behind me is the latest newcomer to the market, a redesign from Nissan, the 2015 Murano. So let's take a moment and see what this new design has to offer. They say it's okay if you're late to the dance just as long as you show up, and that may be kind of the statement here for the Murano. Now the Murano debuted back in 2003 and kind of redesigned in 2009. Now that's about a 6-year span, so obviously it's about time we had another redesign. Now this 2015 model has again reinvented kind of what Nissan is bringing to the table. I like the previous version, don't get me wrong, but what you're seeing here is drastically different. So if you're not familiar with the Murano, what is it? Well, it is a crossover after all in the mid-size segment. Now the previous versions, a little bit more rounded, a little less sculpted, and of course this is going with the cutting edge technology that you see today in the exterior design with chiseled to perfection like lines. Now we've seen this profile across the kind of lineup, but what I like with the Nissan here is it really kind of separates itself from the competition. Nice ridge line here, a little kind of bellowing out at the bottom, and of course this sloping back rear end. Of course we've seen on a lot of the other vehicles, but maybe this is just kind of Nissan's own touch at the whole entire market. So I test drove the Juke a few months back, and this rear end kind of reminds me of it. Nice stylized kind of tail lights you're not going to see across the board. Now what I like again is this design element, nice kind of chrome accents, a kind of knife all back here, and really stylizes this vehicle. Of course we can go with plain Jane, but the Murano here again is reinventing the segment and giving you just some pizzazz. To match these kind of curvy lines, you're going to find it also in the midline. As you sweep back on the vehicle, you kind of have that bellow out we talked about a second ago, but this nice ridge line that comes down and tucks back up and goes right to the front end. Now the Murano still keeps the overall design. We really haven't reinvented the overall design because it was a good thing, so why replace it? But as always, guerrilla warfare is where the front end comes into play, and what I love is this black insert grille, kind of a go-to choice across this mid-size segment. Now there is a little bit too much chrome in my opinion that sweeps down here, but again we've wrapped it in some nice body color, and overall a nice stylized front end, and these headlights really are signature on this vehicle. One thing I always look for at the front end of any vehicle is parking sensors. Now it's easy to get this kind of small vehicle into any tight spaces, but why not have radar sensing up front? Well, it's not on this particular model, but one thing it did have is that little device tucked down low on the bumper, and that is the radar-like device when you're using cruise control. Now we'll get into that on the inside, but basically allows you to put this vehicle in tight traffic and take your foot off the gas and more or less forget about it, as it sets the pace for this vehicle and you just drive along. By the numbers, how does the Murano measure up? Well, quite lengthy, about 192 inches overall and about 111-inch wheelbase. Now that compared to our previous test drive where that vehicle came in about a half foot less and the wheelbase was a little bit smaller. Now one thing I look at on any kind of SUV crossover is ground clearance, because after all, I feel like I'm in an SUV, so I want to be up higher like one. Now for this, it's kind of minimal ground clearance, around about 6.9 inches. On average, other ones are going to fall maybe closer to about 8 inches, just a little bit more height. Now as for the wheels, this vehicle comes standard with 18-inch like you see here, or there is a 20-inch version as well. On every vehicle has to be the smart key system, and thankfully it's here on the Murano. Again, just keep it in your pocket and forget about it. Now when you swing around here to the cargo area, an important feature to me on any crossover, because you're combining that sedan quality and SUV, so you kind of want the best of both worlds in a smaller package. Now one feature I like on this vehicle is the power liftgate. Now one thing to note is it is a little bit slow. Now as it eventually gets to its full position, what you're going to see is the advantage of a crossover vehicle: a huge, mass amount of cargo area and a vast opening to climb inside. Now by the numbers, you're looking at about 39 cubic feet with all the seating laid flat, around about 69. Under the cargo floor, maybe just as important as the cargo area, and what I like here to start is this nice carpeted area. It seemed to keep things somewhat in place without sliding around. Now once you lift this up, it's a nice little mat with the floor, and underneath it, voila, a full-size spare. Now that of course is there should you need it, in an awesome place with ease of getting it out. Now with all this cargo area back here, it can be kind of a stretch to reach those rear seat backs when you want to transition this cargo into the passenger area. Now on a recent test drive behind the Santa Fe Sport, what we noticed was there's a transitioning of that made real easy, and you find it here on the Murano as well, with this handle built into the cargo wall. Now what that allows you to do is easily fold these seats back. Now this design is kind of an 80-20, 70-30 split. On the Santa Fe Sport, it was more of a 40-20, 40. Simply pull this handle and the seat backs fold flat. Now what that allows you to do is really transition this cargo into the passenger area in one fell swoop, kind of combining passenger comfort and all the cargo gear. Once inside the Nissan Murano, I didn't really find any draw from the past. This is the new generation, and the biggest feature had to be these pillow-like seats. Now in the mid-size crossover segment, I found a vast array of different seating. Some are just hard, you sit down, no comfort. These on the other hand, really enveloping and really allow you to kind of relax after a long day of work. Now another area you're going to relax in has to be the legroom numbers. Now up front, it's going to be around about 43 inches and really allows any framed size to climb inside all the way up to an NBA star. Now in the back seat, still decent room, around about 38 inches. Now that's above par, because in the mid-size segment, you're looking for numbers easily above 35 inches. So when you creep up to these numbers, that's plenty of leg room to go around. The Murano may be classified as mid-size segment, but one thing that's oversized on this vehicle has to be the screen front and center on the dash. Now it is traditional touchscreen, has all the nice navigations down here on the bottom, and just a few simple buttons that maybe the competition doesn't have, but allows you to really kind of navigate this system with ease. Now I like the old traditional knob here, and the tune select with the kind of different modes really helps you kind of navigate and use the touchscreen when needed. Now as you scroll down, you're going to find the dual climate controls in this particular model. Again, I love the fact that this is digitally set, specific temperature, really kind of dial in everyone's comfort with, again, just minimal buttons down below. One difference you're going to find here on the Murano versus the competition has to be the location of the start-stop for the ignition. Now most vehicles have it kind of located on the dash a little bit further up near the steering. Here they've tucked it down just below all the entertainment. Now beside that, maybe a little antiquated, is the old toggle switches for the heating of the seats, but I like it because you can leave them on. That way when you remote start this vehicle, they're already set. Now as you scroll down, you're going to find a little bit of kind of textured gray wood grain with the old traditional shifter and dual cup holders. If you're looking to connect your devices, most of the time you're going to find it about in this area on most vehicles, but not here on the Murano. They've actually got it hidden down in a compartment between the front seats. Now the one thing I found about it is you do have a nice USB connection and auxiliary jack, but because it's located kind of in this niche area, it was quite hard to get my hand inside there. Instead, I actually had to get my wife to use her delicate touch to hook up the devices. So the Murano didn't come with parking sensors either at the front or the back, but what it did have was a round view monitoring. Now what that does is when you're in reverse, you're going to be able to see out the back camera like the traditional styling on most vehicles, but you also have the surround view like you see here on the right. Now what that allows you to do is really kind of see that 360 all the way around you, get bird's eye of the vehicle, kind of in proximity to other items. On the steering wheel is going to be controls for cruise and stereo and your mode function that you're going to find on the dash. Now the dash is basically simple with the tachometer on the left and the speed on the right, but what I love is the digital readout front and center. Now you can customize all that, see a lot of data as you're going down the road, but the best thing has to be the digital readout for speed, giving the exact number versus the old analog to the right. Now, if you're picking anyone up at the airport and don't want to get out to greet them, simply press the old button here and that rear tailgate is going to rise to the occasion. Now, once they load their stuff themselves, press it again, it's going to close for you. They can hop inside and make for an awkward ride home. One area you always got to think about is blind spot awareness, and thankfully the Murano comes equipped with it. Now, the old traditional for most vehicles is the orange indicator there on the mirrors, but on the Murano, they've moved that indicator on the inside door. Kind of a nice orange light, really to me a lot more noticeable and alerts you a lot quicker. Now one thing I always look at is the glass all the way around, and we got plenty of 360 view on this vehicle, but one thing you never think about has to be up above, and this comes with a nice panoramic view. When you think of comfort, the first thing you think about has to be the seating and more or less this positioning of the seat back. Now in the good old days, it was pretty simple. It was straight up and down and forget about it. But with the new cars, reclinability is a key feature. Now a lot of vehicles, what they're doing is putting a handle here, be able to move this back and forth, or down low here. Now for the Murano, it's the same pull handle that we use to tumble it forward, but what you're going to need to do is pull on this and kind of keep a little bit of pressure and ease it back. Now obviously if you're sitting here, you can do this while you're seated, lean it back, and you got a lot of relaxation built in here. Once in the back seat, really what you're going to notice is the amount of comfort that comes with that leg room, which again is around about 38 inches. But with the front seats, typically going to be moved forward just a hair. These numbers are easily going to be 39, 40 inches, rivaling most vehicles' front seat leg room, but you're going to find it in the back seat. Now another key feature to the overall comfort has to be the cathedral-like feel, really starting with the amount of headroom. Now what I've noticed on a lot of vehicles, when they have this full panoramic roof, that seems to creep down in the overall headroom, but not in this case. Now that pillow-like effect, like I talked about in the front, of course continues back here, giving you just a great enveloping like seating position. Last but not least, has to be the elbow support, perfectly positioned, 2 cup holders, and a nice little niche. Connectivity, of course, we have it up front, and the back seat passengers have got to have it as well. And where you're going to find it is a nice USB connection right here, maybe even a little tray to put their phones, and you got to have climate, which is found in these vent selection down here. Now some vehicles like the Santa Fe have moved these vents to the pillars, but I like these because they really are situated down low, but it wouldn't hurt to maybe reposition these to the outside, because once you sit a third passenger in the middle, those knees are going to block that airflow. With so many vehicles on the road and those coming with so many choices under the hood, sometimes it just can be too hard to choose between a 4-cylinder or a V6. Now thankfully for Murano, they only have one choice, the V6 option. Now what that comes with is a 3.5 liter V6 with decent horsepower, something you expect considering you want a little bit of spunk when you have such a nice exterior. Now by those numbers, about 260 horses and 240 foot-pounds of torque. Now this vehicle comes in either front wheel drive like we had here, or an all-wheel drive version. Now that does it for this edition of Road Warrior and a test drive behind the wheel, the all-new redesigned 2015 Nissan Murano, the 3rd generation, and from the exterior, they really nailed it. Now some other features we like on this midsize crossover has to be the interior comfort, most specifically those pillow-like seating, really enveloping you as you sit down. Now the horsepower really nailed it, and that cargo in the back literally delivers everything you possibly want. Now as always, thank you for watching this edition of Road Warrior. Keep both hands on the wheel and eyes straight ahead.